Hi everybody, welcome back. This is game 5 now of the National Championships 2018. We are going to be watching a game between Stewart Houten and Steve Perry. Stewart, until the last round, I believe, was leading the NSC actually with an unbeaten record. But the dastardly Belfastian Rick Kennedy played 4 consecutive bonuses to unhinge Stewart's iron grip on the lead. So it's Stewart to start, and we're away. Great rack to start off with. Okay, doesn't make a bonus, but some really good opportunity to score and keep a decent balance. So something like Folky should stand out immediately. FOLKY keeping ER. It's a shame that the Y isn't an M for merfolk. Or indeed any other tile is exchanged for a number of different tiles, because there are a lot of 7s with one swap. A lot of players here would question whether to play Folky to the left or right. Then you have to play it to the left, keep the K next to the double letter score, don't give away anything needlessly. And I play it very quickly, which Stewart has done. Probably just making 100% sure he's not missing anything bigger. A pretty straightforward play there to start. Okay, so Steve probably has a similarly straightforward decision to make. He wants to get rid of the Q. The question is whether he decides to unduplicate his S, which he is doing. A lot of players decide that they've got to keep on to an S, hold on to it for grim death, because S's are amazing things. But actually, a duplicate of any tile is generally non-synergic. So there's not a huge amount of difference between, in this case, playing off one S because you've got the other one. It does sort of telegraph that you have got a second S, but at this stage it's less of a concern. Stewart now with another interesting one, a lot of potential. Potential to play off short work and keep strong bonus opportunities. The positioning of the K means that he can offload the Y relatively fruitfully. So just something as easy as YU, keeping I Brett or Biter, depending on how you want to put it. Or indeed you could play Buy, which is sacrificing a bit of score needlessly. I don't think TIRE versus BITER is significantly different in the defensive value of YU. You have to consider, I mean, what it's also done is created an S hook when he doesn't have the S, and as we now know, Steve does. So relatively quickly you'd expect wasted to go down. Or indeed, well, I'm saying wasted and buys, there's an opportunity to be wasted underneath Folky here, so making Saular, Key and buys. 14, 15, 16, 17, 19, 24, 20, 31, 33, 45, 85. So actually the wasted play making the underlap, 86, is actually the superior play and less obvious play. Yeah, good spot. Steve spots the stronger player, which is good, because sometimes when you're turning over your tiles, you see you've got a bonus and your opponent creates an S hook for you. It's very easy to jump at the chance. But it actually wasn't the BUY S hook that was the exciting one here, it was the BY one. Back to Stewart. Now, Stewart's fallen a little bit foul of sacrificing score for keep, and picking out really bad tiles to go with his rack. So a nice vowely favourite of all Scrabble players out there, Area Knight, if he had an N, which obviously he does not. And pretty low opportunity here to score a huge amount. So he's going to find himself in a situation where he's just playing off a couple of tiles, hoping to get a bonus. And of course, there aren't many places to play bonuses on this board. So he could be considering OI, well, he should be considering something like OI. Or potentially a bit of a clear out of the rack and play something such as Idiot through Wasted. He is 61 down. Again, we're early stages of the game, so you shouldn't panic too much at this moment in time, but he needs to not let the board get too clunky. I'd be probably in Stewart's situation now, trying to find a way of playing maybe 4 tiles, keep either IER, ITE, something similar if possible, as long as I could score about 15 or 20 points. The difficulty is that there aren't many places to do that. The other difficulty is if you're going to play a couple of tiles, the OI, for example, there's no easy way of doing it to take out that juicy looking E of Wasted, risk of a big X play or something going across underneath there. He might be tempted to fish off the OI and make OY for 11 points. Or just DIE from the D of Wasted. Lots of bitty plays. DIE basically guarantees Steve 50 points if he's got the X, which obviously from this point of view we know he hasn't. And DIE does set up the T hook to make diet, which would really be the only usable opening that Stewart would have on the next move, but we would expect Steve to play something through it. Going back to what I was saying in the last game, people often think that the really bad racks are the ones that cause the problems, but actually it's racks like this that almost do it, which are the ones that you really, really have to waste some brain power on. Because if you make the wrong move, you suddenly go from having an almost rack to having a nowhere near rack, and you've only scored 10 points in doing so. Okay, he's played E-Day, utilising the ease. Probably he is reassured by the fact that he's leaving the ease floating. He really wanted to play off more than a couple of vowels, giving himself a good shot at having a balance, which he has achieved. And actually, as it happens, he's picked out parroted, so it's worked out well. Steve, good potential rack. Playing Zyme, strong score, sets up the A hook on the front, which, as we know, Stewart can use if he decides to play parroted and A Zyme. Alternatively, it gives Stewart 3 more points now for playing down the side and making mid. I think this will be telling of Stewart's mindset, whether he opens up the triple line or he plays down onto mid. He will score more points by playing A Zyme. So we can see, interesting, so Stewart has his rack arranged as partoid, which I'm hoping means he's, oh, hello. Oof, okay. So for a second there, I thought he was going to play a phony. As it is, he's taken the highest scoring bonus option. Playing with us. Steve has a clunky rack. I mean, keeping cube in, it was never likely to be brilliant. But adding the V into the mix, bit of a challenge. You'll probably be looking at something like Vinik now through the I, to get rid of some of the clunk and keep BUR, or in curve onto the E, Brucine also onto the E. It would be nice if he had some plays through the MI. She has Corb, COURB, making MIB, which doesn't do anything to frustrate the triple, but it does keep VIN, which is reasonably good. So let's see a lot of other options. It's got very little actually with D. I can only see unbid or unrid. It's going to reach the triple upwards, and only 3-letter additions to the D drub and so on, which doesn't really do anything for the rack. I think in this situation, my preference would be play something like Corb for 34 points. The other option which he might be considering, just looking at the way he's arranging things with rack, is Bunco, BUNCO, onto the O of parroted. Not a bad play. 24, but more or less the same in terms of keep as the Corb play. Doesn't score as much, creates another opening. I'll probably stick with Corb, I think. Interesting, he's playing Runic. Runic doesn't really do it for me. The Vib keep is pretty awful. I think if you're going to play anything down there, you play Vinik and keep BUR. And Stewart, in the meantime, has picked out a great rack. Straight away, I'm sure he'll have seen that he's got Heroise and Ides. Wouldn't have had a 9-timer through the D anyway. I think the only not 8s with that is Heroised with a Z. Other bonuses I can see here: Cheerio, Echo Ear, Heroin. Imagine Stewart's just looking to see. Actually, he may not even be taking too much time to see if there's anything else possible. There's very little else possible on this board. I mean, he could play what I'm about to say, which is Cheerio up top, or Heroise on 2-day. I would have preferred to play Heroise in that position. I think scores 1 point more, but I would prefer to start forcing my opponent to make overlaps, rather than just give him a free E or an easy S hook, and cheap S hook. Cheerio does have the benefit, though, of beginning to close off what was a relatively closed off top part of the board in any case. It's frustrated the U now, and of course frustrated the opportunity to play anything that ends in O or U onto the P. Steve, pretty much as expected, with a keeper VIB, has a very clunky selection. He is currently 44 points behind, so all is not lost yet, but he needs to keep the score ticking. And ideally, he wants to keep enough flexibility on the board that he's got an opportunity to make a comeback. So plays such as O Volo onto the O of Parroted might be worth considering. I mean, the O in 7th or 8th place for a 8-letter word isn't brilliant, but it equally would make it a bit more hard for his opponent to block meaningfully, because a play onto that O then would create a position along the second row underneath whatever Stewart hangs out. What Steve has to avoid really at this stage is playing anything that might score a little bit, but actually begins to restrict the bottom part of the board. So I'd be looking maybe something like Bool, BOOL, across the top of Cheerio. Well, that doesn't do a great deal to open up. It still keeps the O of Parroted open a little bit. Importantly, keeps the hooks on E-Day, keeps the E open to play through. I think he's playing O Bowl. Yeah. Many options there, much of a muchness. The damage that O Ball does create, though, is that it creates a nice position for the J, which Steve doesn't have, and as we know, Stewart does have. Stewart's in a nice position here that he can choose to either offload the J now or offload the X now, both for 40 plus points. Or he's got a choice if he could play to properly seal up that part of the board. I mean, there aren't a huge number of front hooks anyway for Oi. So yeah, I mean, Stewart plays Jag. Interesting choice. He plays Jag, and okay, the G is quite clunky. Had he not played the G, he would have had Mux as a semi-guaranteed opportunity. Steve, in the meantime, has drawn one of the worst racks I've seen in a very long time. Vit U. I don't think you can play through that. Any attempt to play through that is going to result in killing the board. I think you change VVUIT, which is what he's doing. Stewart has the non-word sex pump. We won't be seeing that coming out. Other options are Supermax, I think, as in a Supermax Prism, and Amplexus. He would, of course, now have Mux had he not played the G, but you can't blame him for getting rid of the G. something as simple as XU from E Day would really cramp Steve's style. You take out the floating E, and you take out the potential for S hooks. And of course you keep the M and the P, slightly less likely, for the hooks on Oi. So Stewart has pretty much everything that he needs at the moment. Another option would be to play something such as ump, making Saum, S-O-W-M, and lap. Or mix-ups, in fact, has been pointed out, which I completely overlooked. Yeah, mix-ups there, not even using the blank. It's a major opportunity. In his excitement, he's overdrawn. There is no bad tile here for Steve to put back. Stewart will have a bonus left regardless. Yes, he's put the A back. But as we all know, Stewart still has options and bonuses on his next move. So Steve, at this point, 126 down, needs to balance, score, and not get rid of too many tiles, which just playing off the LI achieves. Stewart, though, has a lot of options. So say the best one probably being, well, best two, either dump site or dumpster. Dump site being better because it doesn't create an S hook. Difficult to see how Steve will come back from this. Difficult, if not impossible, because Stewart's about to be about 175 up on a board that is dead. If Stewart doesn't know dump site, you would certainly expect him to see dumpiest and dumpster, which I think is what he's about to play. Yeah. Okay, Steve really up against it now, 179 down. You're not realistically going to come back from this unless your opponent makes a major mistake. So now is the time to play widen or wind or something through the E of Cheerio, set up a 9 timer, and hope that your opponent plays a phony. course, he could decide to play in turn through the second E of Cheerio and give Stewart Veronica. But we'd hope that's not going to happen. More conservative options are things like twin under Dunster, unwit to open another 9-timer instead of wind. It's probably more realistic to actually get a playable 9-timer since the T would be better than the W. Things like print are obviously worth considering, but although they score reasonably better than the other two options, you're not going to win the game with them. I think this is the kind of situation where your style of play and the things that you choose are really influenced by the situation in the tournament. If you had to win this game in order to have a chance, you would be playing unwit or wind. Steve playing win, set up the T hook on the front. All Stewart will be thinking now is, what can I do to frustrate the limited openings that are on the board? Either that, or he can just score through. Something such as Micron from the MI, which is specifically why we didn't play mix-ups earlier on, because we wanted the opportunity for Micron, I hasten to add. Moves down from the P, so just Parvo. Parvo keeping a reasonable CEN. Still very bonusy tiles out from Stewart's point of view. Notably, Steve has picked out the S and the N to hook un, which he didn't have before. Well, he didn't have after he played win. I think in this situation, I would probably play Parvo. A lot of really good tiles out. A lot of chance for Steve to get a bonus underneath win, possibly down the side. I'd rather just power through with score and give myself a chance at those bonusy tiles as well. In CEN, you're also hanging out an R to play through, and another vowel. So you've got a good shot at a bonus yourself. For those who are interested, there are 3 eights with that rack, no Verkal Conferva, and the one I mentioned earlier on, Veronica. There's options to play Micron. Nothing wrong with that. VAE, probably not as good as CEN, but not really doing too much to open the board. Now, the question is, will Steve play print? Oh, he's playing, interesting. I think you really need to play something that creates more openings. Ned is a it's a negative play. The only way Steve is going to win this is with a big score. And actually, RANTS, I suppose lots of A's and E's. He's got a good shot at just picking out a retains rack. Obviously, Stewart doesn't know how close he was to having evaluate playable. So Steve will have a bonus on his next move. A word which I've seen many times people mistakenly think is valid is peeve, P-E-A-V-E. It's only P-E-E-V-E, PV, P-E-A-V-Y, and P-E-A-V-I-E-S. It's also good as the bonus, but not P-E-A-V-I-E. Not many options down from the P. Palea, P-A-L-E-A, Palau, P-E-L-A-U. So the scoring options are limited here, and I think Stewart will be, while he's comfortably going to win this game, he will be wanting to frustrate as much as possible that bottom left-hand side, which possibly is best achieved by playing VEE underneath win. But it's whether you want to waste your time doing that or just get on with it. Yes, one of the things that could play on your mind in this situation is that in the event that Steve does get a bonus, making twin, he will, in the process, be setting up a 9 timer. Now, you're always going to block that, but maybe at this stage you just want to make sure that he's not going to do that. In which case, VE would very much seal that potential up. For those who are watching and may not know, the plays that Steve has available to him will be rosting, making twin, or storing and sorting across underneath win. He also has trigons, but trigons won't go anywhere at this stage. Interestingly, the sim has Juve at the top. which is suicidal. Well, not suicidal, but on your upper 9-timer, where if you give the opportunity of a 9-timer, Stewart has done a very sensible move that he's set up his remaining U while taking out the potential for Steve to play Rosting and thereby open up a 9-timer. Steve will still have a bonus, but it won't particularly score highly. Stewart won't particularly have a big score off Juve. He will be Aula, AULA, but I think it achieved everything it needed to. "22 unseen tiles at the moment, so it's 15 in the bag. Steve's play will leave 8 in the bag. Okay, all rule played. Straightforward. Killing the line. Okay, not using the U-hook for Vey, but it doesn't really matter. People can hear. People can hear you. Please leave. I think now it's a case of just playing through the remaining tiles. So 3 in the bag from Steve's point of view, and we happen to know they are VAH. Even with perfect knowledge at this point, I don't think there's anything that Steve can do. But even so, it's always good practice straight away to think, how do I leave 1 in the bag? So with the game having gone, you should be thinking about how to minimize the spread. In a situation where you're 169 down, it's not always easy to keep yourself focused in order to do that, but it's important so every point of spread can count in the end. I think actually, overall, looking back at this game, it's been pretty well played. There's not been any massive misses. I mean, mix-ups was probably the major mistake in this. Stewart certainly had the rub of the green, light blue, dark blue, red, and pink. Things could have gone very wrong when he played E-Day, but not only having parroted, but having someone play it so much was a bonus. Steve played Zyme very, very quickly. I wonder if there might have been better moves to consider at that point. And also the moves that he's generally picked have not been the kinds of moves to let you win a game from a long way behind. They've been the kinds of moves that you play if the scores are roughly equal and you need to get an edge. It's all well and good, but when you're 150 down, you don't need an edge. You need a massive hammer. Meanwhile, picking out J as Stewart did, having the X as the immediate follow-up, and the blank in tow, I think he was always going to be the favourite to take this one away. Steve still has 6 minutes on his clock, so he's probably thinking how he can minimise the spread. I would suggest at the moment the best way is just to get out as quickly as possible. So he's doing the classic, playing off 2 tiles to leave 1 in the bag. In doing so, well, from his point of view, he might have given himself a shot at drawing out Nathing. Stewart choosing to play Attack, just to block any potential plays down from the end. It's probably overly negative. I don't think there was any massive threat there for him. Sacrificing 10 points to make sure your opponent can't score 70. Of course, he has ruined his opportunity to go out in 2 with that, because he kept the clunky F. When I started playing Scrabble, at the end of games, I would actually spend minutes, even if I'd won the game, checking to see whether my opponent could possibly score enough to catch me. And by that, I mean playing, if they played all of their letters in any space on the board, making the most ridiculous words, could they catch me? And I was never quite happy until I was convinced that they couldn't. And I wonder in this situation if Stewart was having the same thought. As the game plays out, as expected, Steve scores well with Aga. Stewart plays Fave to offload the clunk, and then we would expect Steve to go out. Must be something better than... Oh, you definitely don't want to play that, Steve. Steve, that's not a word. I think Steve has just got it mixed up with knife, N-I-F-E. Has Stewart challenged? The outplay is Nevi, not knife. So Stewart has accepted the phony. Wow. Overall, a well-played game until that last move, which was rather bizarre, but there you go. So Stewart comes out the winner by a bit less than he should have been. Considering he sacrificed points to play a tut to block, he sacrificed to have a lot more by not challenging a phony on the final move, but there you go. So congratulations to Stewart Houten, seems to be back on winning ways. And commiserations to Steve, who didn't have quite the rub of the green in this one, but I'm sure he'll come back swinging in the next games.